When I was first told that we had to do an action research project as part of the program here at Full Sail, I must admit that I was very worried, since I wasn't currently teaching or working anywhere for that matter. It wasn't until our second month in the Multiple Learning Theory Applications course with Beth that I began to focus in on my research topic and thought about using gaming in education. Through this course, I learned the benefits of teaching to students using multiple learning styles because not everyone learns in the same way. This is also the month that we first began creating our action research website. I then became inspired when I just happened across the website for the World of Warcraft in School Wiki by Lucas Gillespie. He had already done something similar to what I was wanting to do with an after-school club using WoW. I researched his work, emailed back and forth with him, and weighed all my options. After much deliberation, I decided to use Guild Wars because I was familiar with it already and it was free to play after you purchased the game. I decided to carry out an action research project using the MMORPG Guild Wars to teach social skills like teamwork and leadership that are highly sought after in the 21st century workforce. I discovered in my research that in 2006, Kasner, Lotto, and Barrington conducted a survey on the readiness of new entrants into the U.S. workforce, which found that employers listed teamwork and collaboration as the second most critical skills needed in the workplace. The authors went on to discover that 3/4 of the surveyed employers felt that teamwork and collaboration ranked very high on the list for successful job performance of high school graduates. A nationwide poll conducted by the Partnership for 21st Century Skills in 2007 identified that 80% of voters felt the skills students need to know for today's 21st century jobs are much different than they were 20 years ago. The AR pitch video that I created in the Emergent Technologies in a Collaborative Culture course with Rena Hanaway made me wonder why we were still teaching students the same old way. In her course, we created a blogging website and explored countless numbers of Web 2.0 tools that could be used in the classroom. So why would we still keep lecturing students who were so accustomed to this new technology? As I began researching how using video games could be one of the ways to initiate a change in the way our students are taught and learn, I ran across an article by Schaefer, Squire, Halverson, and G in 2005. Who argued that video games had the potential to change the landscape of education as we know it. That learning experience will serve as preparation for meaningful activity in our post-industrial, technology-rich, real world. I then came across a report from the Project Tomorrow's website. The data here revealed that 56% of students can see how games and virtual simulations could transform their education, but only around 1/4 of the school district administrators include them as part of what their school would look like if money was no object. Dickey in 2006 found that the majority of MMORPGs allow players to socialize, collaborate, communicate, and strategize, making them very social environments. After surveying over 35,000 MMORPG players, Yi in 2004 found that the social skills learned in these environments are highly transferable to real life. After reading all of this literature, our Education Design and Evaluation course with Dr. Chris Deason was a much-needed break that taught us all about the ADDIE model. What became a simple 5-letter acronym for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate soon became a 10-page content proposal that ultimately helped me build the first cycle of my action research project. Creating the Google site also allowed me to create many of the media assets that I could use in my action research project. From the pre-post survey that I created in Google Docs to a screencast video tutorial teaching participants how to download and set up Ventrilo. I was then able to use the Flash assets we created during our Digital Media and Education application course with Lisa Smith to help participants choose which profession they would choose while playing Guild Wars. The cycles began much the same, each with 7 participants ranging in age from 14 to 26 years old. Both groups were given a pre and post survey using Google Docs. They were asked to watch the tutorial on how to install and set up Ventrilo to use for all of our online meetings. Each cycle had discussion board posts and weekly polls. The overall concept was the same for both cycles: to begin a journey into Guild Wars, learning the basics and completing tasks that required teamwork and leadership skills. During Cycle 1, I began to notice some pros and cons to this project. The majority, 86% of the 7 participants, did feel as if they learned some teamwork and leadership skills from playing Guild Wars. The data also showed that character creation needed to be discussed among our group members before professions were selected in order to create a more balanced team. Since this was not done during the first cycle, the teams were very unbalanced, making some of the quests and missions much more difficult. My data also showed that communication was a key part to both teamwork and leadership skills. Out of the 7 participants, 3 did not have a microphone, which made it much more difficult during quests and missions to communicate effectively, and oftentimes the messages they typed in the chat box were not received quickly enough to keep the other team members from dying.
I felt least engaged at the very beginning, the first part of the project where, me personally, we were in Ventrilo and everything, but I didn't own or have a headset or a mic. So I could hear what was going on through the sound speakers, but I couldn't really communicate well and had to type everything out really fast, and then sometimes people couldn't read it.
So what did I change for my second cycle? Well, luckily for me, our Game Strategies and Motivation course with Dr. Dan Siegel came along just as I was trying to figure out how to fix some of the issues that I ran into during my first cycle. He taught us different assessment methods that could be taught using various games. With that in mind, I set up Cycle 2 much the same as Cycle 1, but with a few exceptions. The daily sessions were increased half an hour to allow for more communication in both Ventrilo and in the online discussion board. Participants discussed their professions before creating their character to allow for a much more balanced team and to give everyone the opportunity to think critically about how the profession they chose could affect the team as a whole. All participants were required to have a microphone to allow for better communication in Ventrilo. Participants moved forward from the Prophecies campaign onto the Factions campaign, and mission planning in the discussion boards was added to allow the team to plan the path they needed to follow, any problems they may face, and any changes they might want to make to their skill board before beginning each mission. The results from the second cycle were much better, with all 7 of the participants feeling as if they learned some teamwork and leadership skills from playing Guild Wars. Their comments from Cycle 2 were mostly positive. Several participants mentioned that teamwork was much easier during Cycle 2 because the professions were more balanced on the team.
Minions aren't going to stop, so we just need to move. If we focus on that boss, we might be able to just end it.
Focus on boss. He's an assassin, so watch it. Keep everyone healed. We're pulling a lot of stuff because the minions.
Just try to draw that boss if you guys can. That's it.
That's all.
That's it. I think.
Yeah! Even though this concludes both cycles of my action research, the majority of my participants have decided to stay with the virtual guild and move on to the next campaign in the Guild Wars trilogy, Nightfall. I feel that this research was very relevant in that it did provide participants a fun way to learn several of the key skills needed in today's workforce. In the future, I would like to conduct further research into leadership skills, since this is the one component of this research that seemed to fall through. I think that with better planning and the knowledge that I have gained through this research, I will be able to implement more effective ways to learn the leadership skills that are needed. I feel that the best way to accomplish this would be to bring this research into an after-school program and look at other games that could be used to teach these particular social skills in order to prepare participants for the 21st century workforce. If I had learned about the Schoology LMS platform before the beginning of my action research project, or even before the last cycle began, that it would have been a great help to my project. Therefore, I plan to take the unit I created in the Learning Management System and Organization course with Dr. Rio McBride on Schoology and implement it into my future cycles of this research. And just remember to always engage your students. Game on!